Yo, what's going on, guys? And today I wanted to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. I feel like we've talked about them a bit lately, but really it's actually because this is a squad that is expecting to re-sign Santi Aldama, and then Jaren Jackson Jr. is expected to make an All-NBA or All-Defensive team, which will allow them to renegotiate and extend his contract, as he is someone who's now underpaid. And it's interesting to say, at least, because they were a team that they could have extended Santi Aldama, but what they had done was decided to wait to the offseason, and that might have been because Santi Aldama's representation wanted that, or the Grizzlies wanted that because they didn't know what a proper value for Santi would be. And that was because he's been a guy that every single season he has scaled up his production and is gone with efficiency too. Like he's been able to go and get better with efficiency. So like it's just interesting to say that we have a guy in Santi that clearly is a very, very solid player. Dude, he's playing so many minutes at the 3 this year. This year they've really played him the 3, the 4, the 5. And I've said it before that he is the only player that I think has sort of Lauri Markkanen-esque potential. And I'm not saying that they're the same player, but people, when Lauri went into free agency, and even when he went to the Cavs, didn't expect that he would become this guy to when he went to Utah. And in a similar fashion, Santi, who I expect to remain in Memphis, is the type of guy that if he can go ahead and improve not improve, but get a big offer that the Grizzlies don't want to pay him, or overpay him that the Grizzlies don't want to pay him, and he goes to like a rebuilding team, he's the type of guy that could just then put up stats that are, legit, almost borderline all-star ones. I think he does have that potential. Today, we're going to discuss what this extension could look like, the high, the cheap, and the middle of the road, and what a contract could look like from a team that might want to poach him. The full mid-level exception is 4 years, $72 million, something around that ballpark. I think he's exceeded that value. I think he's closer to 20. I think he's at least $20 million a year. I could be wrong. And the fact that he fits really well next to Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey, being able to play off of both of them and alongside them both while they're both on the floor, just one of them. And the other thing is that he's averaged 13 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and he's primarily been off the bench. So I think that's one of the most impressive things. By the way, shout out ESPN for this information. It's Tim MacMahon, Ramona, Shelburne, and Michael C. Wright for just they were the ones who reported that they expect to re-sign Santi Aldama. So here we go. The deals that we could potentially say that may be at play, like the Grizzlies cap sheet shows that a deal between $15 and $20 million annually is going to be what they want. And to me, I think that's the biggest thing, as this is going to be a team that I think 20 years, 80 million would be what they would really want to put him at. I wouldn't be remiss if he ends up signing like a 4-year 100, as I think it's one of those situations that, regardless of how it's set up, I think it's one that will bode itself well for a team like the Grizzlies if they can make sure they keep him, especially if rumors are true that Ja Morant and the Grizzlies might part ways in terms of a trade. Then it makes sense to keep Santi because he fits the mold of what you want. Now, what would a team-friendly deal be? Probably a 4-year, $48 million deal, descending, as Memphis would lock in him on a reasonable deal that mirrors Brandon Clark's deal, and they wouldn't have to trade Brandon Clark. At this point, I think they also would have to trade Brandon Clark if they decide to keep Santi. Now, we said at the mid-level market value deal would be the 4-year $72 million deal that would allow a guy like Santi to just eat up the full mid-level exception, and you'd be able to then still, this is a team that doesn't pay the luxury tax. So when you're looking at these decisions that they may or may not make, you have to factor in the fact that this is a team that historically does not pay the tax. And when you're looking at roster construction, that's something that you have to consider, is that ownership is not going to be an over the cap team. And if a team like the Spurs, the Hornets, the Nets, even the Pistons, and there's a few other teams that can make, you know, salary cap space by moving some players and then, you know, discarding some non-guaranteed salaries, that they could offer him a deal where Memphis doesn't match it, as the Grizzlies still can retain and do the restricted free agents rights. They could also say, hey, just accept the qualifying offer and we'll reconvene in a year and discuss then, sort of like what the Hornets did with Miles Bridges. Now, the Grizzlies, if they were going to bet on his upside, I do think it is that 4-year, $100 million deal, which maybe, or I think 4-year, $100 million, maybe a 4-year, $80. It's just a pass dribble shoots 7-footer don't grow on trees like that. So showing full belief in Aldama would be giving him that contract, as they would then believe that he's going to be a long-term starter and guy who's going to continue getting better as he pairs well next to Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. And you can also front load the contract so that he gets paid more now and paid less down the road. Like, it's like he's still making the full money, but the average annual value is higher in the first 2 years than it is in the third and fourth year. Now, I believe his projected qualifying offer, because he was like the last pick of the first round, is 1 year, I think just under $6 million. I could be wrong. But as I said, if he still feels like all the deals are like not that good and he knows he's going to get playing time, he could decline all the long-term offers and take the qualifying deal and become an unrestricted free agent in 2026, betting on even stronger production, and that'll be resulting in a bigger payday with a rising salary cap. As another thing to note is that this offseason is considered going to be a dead year in free agency. Just like teams don't really have the salary cap to make moves like that. So that's the biggest thing that we're hearing, is that it's just not going to be a normal free agency. So you already have Morant, Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. on big deals. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening and what they decide to do. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section if you guys agree. Ciao.